In a memorable episode of Run BTS, JUNGKOOK decided to imitate Jimin's part in a fun dynamic. His imitation, although funny and lighthearted, didn't go unnoticed by others or by those who were well acquainted with JUNGKOOK's way of relating to each member. The important thing about this moment wasn't the laughter the imitation caused, nor Jimin's slight discomfort, but rather the way Taehyung behaved throughout the scene. Taehyung was right next to JUNGKOOK, observing his gestures, smiling, and demonstrating a very different connection than any other member had at that moment. This fragment made it clear that JUNGKOOK has never played these kinds of games with Taehyung. He has never imitated his voice, never played with his image in this way. With Jimin, however, he allows himself an innocent and comical imitation. The difference in treatment is no coincidence. JUNGKOOK shows Taehyung a combination of respect and care that surpasses any kind of common dynamic. During that episode, while everyone was laughing, the energy between Taehyung and JUNGKOOK seemed to go in a different direction. They didn't need to say anything or be the butt of a joke to stand out. The respect with which JUNGKOOK treats Taehyung speaks to a kind of connection that only forms when someone truly matters. And Taehyung, for his part, continued to observe him, enjoying how JUNGKOOK carried himself, while always maintaining that invisible bond between the two. There's a very special moment captured between Taehyung and JUNGKOOK, where no physical contact or long words were needed to create an obvious connection. In that video, the two were together sharing time in front of the camera. JUNGKOOK, without doing much, quietly said a simple phrase, "Jarabon what?" He said it in such a soft voice that it was enough to completely alter Taehyung's expression. As soon as he heard it, his reaction was immediate. He moved the camera, lowered his gaze, changed his posture, and his nervousness was so clear that it didn't go unnoticed by those who saw the moment. This kind of reaction doesn't come as a surprise. It's a response that stems from something internal. JUNGKOOK's solo spoke calmly, and that was enough to affect Taehyung. This kind of response, natural and instinctive, demonstrates the level of influence JUNGKOOK has over Taehyung. And it's not a common reaction. It's clear this isn't the first time this has happened, because JUNGKOOK seems to know exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. He uses his voice not as a joke, but as a way to get closer. The way Taehyung acts also speaks volumes. He's used to these gestures from JUNGKOOK, but that doesn't mean they stop affecting him. On the contrary, every time they happen, his body language confirms it. He feels every word, reacts to the tone, and responds with gestures that seem involuntary. They both behave as if they live in a bubble where everything they do only makes sense between them. During one of the most memorable episodes for Taehyung fans, a scene occurred that left much more than laughter or the excitement of a triumph. After practicing and working together in a game, Taehyung and JUNGKOOK won. It was an achievement that felt different because of the way they celebrated. Upon hearing they had won, JUNGKOOK reacted immediately. He ran toward Taehyung without looking at anyone else. At that same instant, Taehyung also ran toward him. They both knew exactly what to do. When they met, they held hands and began spinning in circles, laughing and celebrating so freely that they seemed unaware of their surroundings. That celebration was born in the moment, as if it were a natural reaction between two people who share something profound. It wasn't a brief hug or a quick gesture. It was a physical display of connection, as if this achievement only made sense if they shared it by spinning, holding hands, dancing their own joy. The smiles on their faces were clear. Neither took their eyes off the other. They looked as if they were in their own world, where only that moment together mattered. The audience and cameras were present, but they didn't act as if they noticed. This way of reacting reveals something important. It wasn't a planned move. It wasn't part of a choreography or a formal greeting. It was a real display, where their bodies spoke for them. And these kinds of moments aren't new between them. In many past recordings, Taehyung and Jungkook have shown that they don't need scripts. They just go with what they feel. When we talk about Taehyung and Jungkook, there's one element that constantly recurs: the way their bodies react when they're together. It doesn't matter the location, the situation, or whether there are cameras rolling. There's always an energy between them that manifests in subtle yet precise movements. If one takes a step, the other follows suit without thinking. If there's a touch, there's an immediate response. It's not something learned or planned. It's something natural, almost automatic, as if their bodies recognize each other without needing to say a single word. Those kinds of moments make a difference. Because in the midst of a humorous situation, what stands out is how Taehyung and Jungkook understand each other without words. They don't compete for attention, they don't seek to be seen. They're just there, next to each other, as if nothing else were needed. Thus, the dynamic that seemed fun on the outside ended up leaving a very clear image for those who observed the details. When Jungkook plays, his heart stays still, next to Taehyung. That doesn't change even when all eyes are on him. This way of interacting doesn't happen with anyone else. The fluidity between them seems like that of two people who have learned to know each other deeply. It's not about looking or speaking. It's about knowing when to move, when to get close, when to touch. Most of the time, these gestures go unnoticed by those who don't observe closely. But for those who follow Taehyung and Jungkook, these signs are clear. There is a relationship that goes beyond what is said in front of the cameras. In many moments recorded over the years, you can see Taehyung seek Jungkook out with small movements. Sometimes he just brushes his arm against him, sometimes he leans toward him for no apparent reason, and Jungkook always responds immediately. There is never rejection, never discomfort. It's as if their bodies share a common rhythm. A rhythm that only exists when they are together. The way Taehyung and Jungkook behave when they're around each other needs no explanation. They don't seek attention with words, but their small actions reveal a deep connection. When they're next to each other, everything in their body language changes. They don't just share space. They touch each other without hesitation, gaze confidently, and don't hesitate to approach as if the surroundings don't exist. It's an interaction that goes beyond habit. It seems more like a way of being they've adopted over time. These gestures aren't planned. They arise naturally, as if their bodies know how to react without thinking. A light touch, a sustained gaze, or a brief smile are repeated many times throughout their appearances. And they do it without looking around, as if they don't care who's watching. This shows that this kind of bond wasn't created for the cameras. It's something they maintain even when they're not the center of attention. They don't expect others to understand it, because they don't seek to explain it. In multiple recordings, you can see Jungkook approaching Taehyung for no reason. Sometimes he touches him on the arm, other times he simply sits next to him without asking permission. And Taehyung not only accepts it, but responds as if he expected it. The naturalness with which they relate seems programmed by habit, but in reality it's spontaneous. Neither of them forces the situation. It's a continuous exchange that has become part of their way of being together. It's important to note that this form of contact isn't limited to public moments. Even when they're with other members or during formal activities, that connection remains active. They don't change their behavior or hide it. Nor do they exaggerate to make it noticeable. They simply do it because that's how they understand each other. And that's what has drawn so much attention for years. What they share doesn't seem like a game or something created for entertainment. The actions between them are too natural and frequent to be part of a script. Therefore, those who observe closely understand that it's not an act or a coincidence. One of the strongest signs in the relationship between Taehyung and Jungkook is the way they communicate without speaking. Some people think that what they do in front of cameras is planned, that it's all part of a show. But if you look closely, it's clear that something different is happening between them. The looks, the gestures, the body movements, everything happens so naturally that it doesn't fit into what is understood as fan service. What happens between Taehyung and Jungkook is not repeated with others. Their reactions are unique, as if they both speak a language that only they understand. In each appearance together, you can see how they seek each other out without having to move much. A quick glance is enough for the other to approach. Sometimes one simply changes position, and the other immediately follows. It's a kind of connection that doesn't require scripts or rehearsed lines. If one smiles, the other does too. If one touches the arm, the other responds with the same gesture. These small details, when added together, create a much bigger scene. A scene that shows that what happens between them goes beyond an act. This form of communication doesn't only appear when they're alone. Even when there are many people around, when there are cameras and noise, they continue acting the same. There's no change in their gestures. You can't tell they're pretending or doing something to attract attention. Quite the opposite. They act as if no one else is there. That calm and direct way of reacting shows that it's not an act. It's a habit, a way of being together that they've developed over time. Every gesture they share has meaning. They're not empty movements. They're physical responses, like when Jungkook leans in slightly and Taehyung imitates him without thinking. Like when Taehyung stands still looking at something and Jungkook simply stands next to him, without asking, without interrupting. This kind of synchronicity can't be faked. It's something born of habit, of constant closeness, of the knowledge they have of each other.